Let me tell you guys a story. A real story. Something that happened to me not so long ago. So this video right here is actually my second attempt at making this very video. At some point, I was gonna make this whole rant and discussion about how I'm so frustrated with the current media criticism landscape online. So that goes for video essays on YouTube, people complaining about stuff on Twitter, in every little micro-analysis everyone makes of every piece of media that comes out nowadays. And don't get me wrong, a lot of this still frustrates me, and generally speaking, most of what I'm gonna say here is true, but I've been making some realizations, and I've been noticing that maybe the way I was gonna go about this video wasn't necessarily the best. I've been realizing some good and some bad things about this and ways to deal with it personally that have helped me with, dealing with the whole concept of different opinions and all of that. So today, instead of just complaining about something that happens online and doing my best to understand it, I'm gonna tell you guys how I personally went through this whole character arc of my own, and how I personally like to go about it, and how I personally think the line is drawn between genuine criticism and just being an annoying hater. So let's get into it. So this all started when, for a live stream, I decided to watch a negative video essay about Sonic Frontier's story. And if you guys keep up with the channel, you know I love Sonic Frontiers. Of course, it's far from a perfect game, but it's a game that means a lot to me personally. So for funsies, and because I wanted to watch this video but didn't want to go through it alone, I decided to watch through it on stream and give my own thoughts and reactions to the video as I went. The video was Sonic Frontiers, The Corruption of Storytelling by Jabzone. Genuinely, the video was just sort of a bit unbearable to watch at points, but it was a bit of an eye-opener. And in general, after watching that, I was just kind of exhausted of people complaining about media online and discussing things that ultimately don't matter, and I was just so damn tired of it all. It made me question if I should even keep making the videos I make, because my videos are also effectively just commentary on media I like or dislike, right? So, am I part of the problem? Well, for context, let's start with a much older case. Pokémon Sword and Shield came out all the way back in 2019. Gosh, it's actually been pretty long, it doesn't feel like it. And that game had a lot of controversy surrounding it before it came out, because it was the very first big mainline Switch Pokémon game, and people were expecting more out of the series' first foray into genuine home console entries. Instead, we got a game that looked pretty similar to a 3DS game, and also one that happened to cut a lot of the Pokemon from the game, being the first game in the mainline series to not include every single Pokemon creature up to that point in the series. And that pre-release cycle was a lot. People were complaining left and right, and it was kind of a hellscape on Twitter. But personally, I'm, as you guys know, one that likes to judge media mostly by the experience it provides me rather than some technical issues or some stuff that it decides to include or not include. To me, the experience itself is king, and I was, before the game came out, pretty excited for it. So it was kind of this awkward, frustrating space to be in, where you would see people complaining about animations and graphics and little issues, or how the game wasn't the most polished. And meanwhile, I was just trying to be excited for the game. You got two sides of Twitter back in the day. We were divided between being really excited about the new games that were coming out and just looking forward to what they could provide, and people who were furiously mad at what they were seeing as far as the game went and how it looked kind of rough around the edges, and it really did. But honestly, looking back, the game looked passable and it worked well enough. And from my perspective, it was a step up from the 3DS games visually and aesthetically. So to me, there was nothing to be angry about, personally. And seeing people complain about a very specific, sort of low-res looking tree, or a frankly insignificant piece of animation here and there, it wasn't the vast experience. Ultimately, when it came out, I kind of found certain shoots to be somewhat mid, but for other reasons. As someone who was really excited about the story and the characters, I sort of felt let down by what those actually achieved, and especially with the limited length of the game and the lack of overall depth, it just felt like another Pokemon game to me. So it was ultimately kind of for nothing. I remember back before the game came out, people got so fervorous. People who were excited about the game would include little sword and shield emojis in their Twitter names, and it was this whole thing that, honestly, looking back, was just annoying and frustrating, and it started this whole wave of negativity around the series that still persists to this day, especially with Scarlet and Violet coming out the way they were. It kind of makes being a Pokemon fan sort of unpleasant nowadays. You have to deal with all the stupid arguments all the damn time. Liking the game or not, you're gonna open Twitter and you're gonna see people complain about it. It honestly sucks. But that brings into question another thing. How should we even evaluate media? What makes a game good? What makes a game bad? What makes a movie good, a movie bad, a TV show good, whatever? Where do you draw the line between something that's a guilty pleasure and something that's genuinely good? Well, I don't know. You know me. By now, you understand that I'm very much not the kind of person who cares about a lot of the technical stuff. As long as I can have fun with a piece of media, it's alright to me, you know, as long as I can understand what they're going for and like really feel it. It's about the feelings to me. So who cares if Scarlet and Violet was kind of a mess to play? I love the characters, I love the story, I love playing through the game and exploring the world, so it was a huge dub to me. But should that define what constitutes good or bad media, especially when experience is by nature something so subjective? Alright, I might have had a pretty great experience with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but someone who has a lot of trouble dealing with spiking FPSs and might genuinely get like, you know, headaches and stuff just from playing the game, it's not gonna be as good of an experience. Can you really blame those people for not liking the game? As an example, a situation sort of like this, we can talk about the infamous video essayist, Lily Orchard. She's kind of well known around the media criticism community on YouTube because her opinions are kind of garbage. Hey, editing Ash here, and alright, so initially, I was just gonna mention how Lily Orchard's reviews were kind of poorly made, and that's about it. And at one point I even considered making this intermission to talk about how I didn't want you guys to villainize her just for her opinions, because that's exactly the point that this video is trying to make. But then I did some research, and it turns out she's a lot worse of a person than I initially thought. Not only is she the terrible reviewer, she's also kind of just a come-in-the-earth person in general. So honestly, I don't give a crap. Tell her what you want. I just don't want to have anything to do with this in general. Oh my god, I'm actually impressed. Her videos, they get a lot of views. She does get quite a bit of attention, and of course she has fans, but a lot of what she says, it's all exaggerated. It's all very personal, but usually to the negative side. I want to bring forth a particular example, her Steven Universe video, which is probably her most infamous one, where she basically spends like, 3 hours complaining about what's honestly a pretty great TV show. It has its issues too. I love Steven Universe. I know many other people love Steven Universe. I think it's kind of the consensus over like nowadays over if it's Steven Universe is bad or not. Like people like it, at least. A lot of people like it. It's a pretty good, decent show. Maybe you can talk about the finale. It doesn't matter. Overall, it's not complete garbage. And yet here we have Lily Orchard being so sure she's correct about the fact that Steven Universe is trash and everyone who likes it is just a stupid little baby who will enjoy anything with bright colors and dialogue. Don't want to go into too much detail on why the video is trash. A lot of other people did that already in much greater detail than I ever could. But really, it's not just me saying that. You can go online and see like tons of videos people saying, oh, Lily Orchard was wrong about Steven Universe, actually. And beyond anything else, what annoys me is that she acts like she's smarter than the work itself. There's no greater point to the whole video. She's not like, okay, so this is why fundamentally Steven Universe doesn't work. No, she just goes through the series and points out all the little issues she can find that bother her, and it doesn't add up to anything, and it doesn't say anything too meaningful. Tons of tangents and all that. It's honestly just a very poorly structured video that got a lot of attention. And Steven Universe Plus, combined with the fact that it has a very, ups and downs fan base, as any popular piece of media tends to have, kind of got a negative reputation where a lot of people who aren't really into it started saying, oh, but it's actually bad and stuff. And many people would cite Lily Orchard's video, not knowing that the video is garbage and she's wrong. Or maybe not necessarily wrong, going back to the whole subjectivity thing. Sure, she can be right from her perspective, but the fact that she treats it as objective truth, as if everyone else is wrong, and the work itself doesn't make sense and is like poorly thought out in every conceivable aspect, despite pretty much everyone else enjoying the show just fine, or having a few issues, but not to this extent. It kind of sold the idea for a lot of people that know, oh yeah, that show, it's trash, actually, it's trash. I watched the Lily Archer video, I know why, right? People wouldn't even watch the show, they wouldn't even understand, they just saw one opinion from one person on YouTube that frankly wasn't even that well thought out. And that's disregarding, all the blatant plagiarism and objectively not correct points she makes in the video. Again, me going back and doing some more research, realizing the video is a lot worse than I remembered and kind of problematic. Yeah, that is that. The Lily Orchard video sort of reminded me of what I expected Jabzone's video to be. And in a few ways it kind of was, but not necessarily. Of course, most of y'all already know, Sonic games have had a bit of a shaky constant of quality across the years, which led to the pretty much abhorrent status of the Sonic community online. People can't agree on what games are good and what games are bad, and what even makes the series good or bad. There's tons of discourse because basically the series tried to be different things at different times, and different people grew up with different eras of the series by now. Sonic is old. Sonic is 30 years old by now, over 30 years old. And people who grew up with, say, the 2000s games don't have the same expectations on what Sonic should be as the people who grew up with the 90s games or the 2010s games. And that basically led to a whole conversation about quote-unquote era wars, where they would basically form clans of which part of Sonic are you really a fan of. And even Jabzone himself made a video where he discussed toxic positivity on the Sonic fanbase, because what would happen a lot of the time is that people were maybe fairly enough kind of skeptical about whatever game is coming out now, and other people were trying to enjoy it or trying to see the good side of things. And those two sides would get into conflict because some people would be so excited and so optimistic they would start to push that opinion down other people's throats, and even if they saw the game and really weren't excited for it, they would be basically shamed online for it, and it wasn't a good, healthy thing at all, even though maybe some people were just trying to be positive. There's definitely a line here, and honestly, this kind of situation can happen with both sides of discussion. People get really passionate and really personal about this and can't just understand that people can disagree on things, and that's fine. One of the people who was very much happy with current Sonic, or at least hopeful and excited, was Fidel from GamesCage. You might have heard of him if you're into the Sonic community, because he's basically become the sort of centerpiece image, this representative of the Sonic community, because he's basically the Sonic hype guy. He's always excited about stuff, and he does these crazy trailer reactions, and tends to be just a very chill, positive dude. That said, there was a situation very recently that sort of put this into question, where there was this other Twitter user called Caramel's Movie who doesn't seem to be as happy or excited with how Sonic currently is as someone like Fidel or myself. And something happened. I don't quite recall the details, but basically Fidel came out and said, oh, Caramel's Movie, they're kind of a jerk, I have them blocked. And it was this whole drama because in reality Caramel's Movie didn't do anything, and Fidel just heard that Caramel's Movie was a bit of a jerk from friends, and seeing as they were a bit of a current Sonic disliker, it probably wasn't the best match. But in reality, it was just sort of like this big misunderstanding, pretty much, but it still puts into question how tolerant we can be about people who disagree with us. Although is not someone I would call toxically positive. He can understand where current stuff fails, and he's just trying to be chill and have fun. But in this case, his opinion on Caramel's movie was clearly shaped partially by how they were negative about the current Sonic stuff, and I believe his comment about having them blocked was prompted by them saying something to that effect. So it kind of just puts into question this guy I used to very much admire for being positive and excited while also being respectful. He kind of messed up and was accidentally disrespectful. And I don't want to be toxic. I just enjoy the game because it gives me the good vibes. So it led me into this sort of crisis where I didn't know how okay it was for me to enjoy a game. Brings me back to Jab's Sonic Frontiers video, because as I mentioned in the beginning, it was kind of unbearable to watch, because similarly to Lily Orchard's video, I felt it was sort of nitpicking, and a lot of times it felt like he was just justifying his view, as in, oh, he didn't really want to like Frontiers to begin with, and he's just going through all the little issues he can possibly find with the game to justify this point of view without any broader points or anything like that. But there was a huge difference between his video and Lily Orchard. Not only were the points overall quite a bit more solid, even if I personally still disagree with them, and I still feel like it was mostly leaning too much in like the negative side to try and justify an opinion instead of giving it a fair shot in analysis. It's very much on the subjective, oh, I don't like this about the visuals or this about the voice acting, but nothing quite, you know, agreeable by everyone. A lot of what he says can simply be brushed off as things I don't mind, and things many other people simply don't care about and can still enjoy the game regardless. But he was respectful enough, right? And there was a fair, decent argument around what he was saying. So even though it was kind of frustrating to watch, especially like, okay, I did enjoy watching it on stream and it was a fun time, and it's always nice to give commentary and talk about stuff I like, but I can't deny that it got me in certain places, and I was sort of like angry and frustrated at the fact that he just didn't seem to get it. Something that meant so much to me personally, emotionally, a story that to me means kind of a lot. To this guy was pretty much a disaster, and I mean, how's that not going to be annoying to watch to some extent? But ultimately, I just can't be too angry, even if it feels like he was unconsciously being mean. There were even some points he opened my eyes on that I agree with now, or at least see where he's coming from. Made me sort of rethink my own position on Frontiers, even if I still like the game and still disagree with him. A lot of what he said is valid, and it puts things into question. It's some interesting stuff. It was probably the most conflicted I've ever felt about a video essay after finishing it. I was still very much angry and sort of frustrated at the fact that he didn't quite get it to me. It felt like he, didn't see the vision. He was kind of being a hater, but there were some good points. I learned more. I guess it was worth it in the end. So, am I a hypocrite for wanting to like the game and for treating him and like other people who are negative about it as just being too negative? Am I toxically positive or toxically negative? Where do I land on this? That's what I was thinking back when I first finished watching it anyway. I can still say with certainty that not everyone who's positive about the series is being stupid and a bootlicker, especially when, again, I still like the game. It still means a lot to me. But there was this one thread on Twitter where someone just posted about being excited about the new games, and then this other guy just made sure to come out there and comment with 4 screenshots of extremely occasional Sonic Frontiers glitches that don't even matter, just to prove their point that no, you're wrong, the games are actually bad now. Like, man, don't ruin other people's fun. It's pretty much just as bad as people who are being positive coming to people who are being respectfully negative and just being mean about it. Just don't be mean about it. Saying that one thread was pretty much like the straw that broke the camel's back and made me realize just how frustrated this stuff was actually making me. How it was annoying to be online and seeing people complain about ultimately just stupid video games, right? Stories have power and meaning, and they're important, and they can change lives. But it's not like I'm devaluing video games specifically. Honestly, for as flawed as all of the Sonic games are, they still mean a lot more to me than any quote-unquote amazingly written book school made me read, right? Media can mean different things for different people. Again, it's all subjective. It's all about that experience. And it's not like I'm devaluing it, but at the same time, even for as important as that stuff can be, you know, you're still sitting down and getting angry at someone else for not enjoying a video game, or even worse, for enjoying a video game. What's so wrong with that? Let people have fun. Not only were they not seeing the good side, but they were basically acting as, you know, like a third-party opinion. Someone was just being excited, not wanting to start any discussion. They just were sharing their enthusiasm, and the other guy just had to come out there with the biggest nerd glasses imaginable and like, oh, but actually, it's bad actually, because you see, there's like these little issues that nobody cares about. Who cares? Who cares? After seeing that, I actually made this whole thread on Twitter myself, where it basically went on a rant that would evolve into the initial version of this video, where I was just complaining about people acting like this. And one of the conclusions I came to is that it's kind of about intent. You see, when you're making a review or a comment about something online, positive or negative, if you go into it with the intent of annoying or disagreeing with people specifically, you're probably the wrong one here. Whereas if you just want to share your opinion because you feel like it needs to be said, or that you want to find more people who agree with you, or start a respectful discussion, that's good, that's okay. But if you go in, oh, I'm gonna be a hater and just complain about stuff online because it's fun, or just not respect other people's boundaries, and even if they're being just negative in their own corner and complaining about something that annoys them, I'm gonna be even more annoying to the thing they're complaining about and go out there and make them seem like idiots or assholes, when there's a lot of nuance to that, of course. Hello, it's Editing Ash once again. Just earlier today, I watched this video by Skyhoppers on Pokémon X and Y, and in the video, his takeaway is also mostly negative, in the sense that he complains a lot about what the story did, but that is a lot more attractive to me as a video and as a piece of discussion and criticism, because it comes from a place of trying to understand what they were going for. It comes from a place of actually like giving the story a chance and realizing, okay, so this is where they messed up and this is how they could have done better, you know, that kind of thing, versus going, oh, but the story is bad and here's why. I'm honestly way more forgiving or like into videos that end up being negative because they're trying to, you know, deconstruct and understand what a story is, what it gets right and what it gets wrong, versus a video that's just outright being negative for the sake of being negative. This is genuinely a negative video that somehow made me appreciate the story more after watching it. While that is a solid way to look at it, there's of course a lot of nuance in that as well. I made a review on Sonic Prime where I said I didn't like the show. I was trying to be as respectful as possible, but it doesn't change the fact that I shared memes comparing the show to Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse. And at that point, I honestly didn't know how to feel about that either. Was I the wrong one? Again, was I being hypocritical for being positive about one thing, being negative about another, and complaining about people disagreeing with me? It was sort of part of the issue, or that's at least what I thought. Going back to the Sword and Shield pre-release, yeah, I was one of the ones that put the little emojis on my Twitter name, and going back, I don't know how wrong I was to do that. Okay, the little things that didn't bother me seemed insignificant to me, but they might have not been for other people, and as long as they were chill about it, then that was okay too. Maybe it wasn't the best decision to, you know, take part in a flame war about a freaking Pokemon game. It's fine, wait for the game to come out. Enjoy it if you like it, don't enjoy it if you don't. It's just a product, it's worth $60. That's it. Now looking back with more time, I think I sort of had a right to be angry, especially when people were being disrespectfully negative all the time, and it was basically impossible to avoid all the complaining and all the flame war discussion on the line. But if it happened nowadays, I would probably be a lot more chill about it. I don't know if I would necessarily pick a side. I would just say, oh, I'm still excited about the game, and sit down and wait for it to come out before say anything else. I would just try to be excited in my own corner and avoid all that flame war because it isn't worth it. But as I sort of implied back when I was talking about Lily Orchard, there's another issue with this whole media discourse thing online. Opinions can spread like wildfire, and I can't necessarily say I'm not sort of guilty of that as well. you know, I mentioned in the Archer thing how people would just watch that video and assume the Steven Universe is bad through that without having actually ever watched the show themselves. But it's not like I ever watched something like Sword Art Online, for example, or the third and fourth Despicable Me movies. I have enough context and have seen enough opinions and videos on them to know that I would probably not like them, and I'm not gonna waste my time and money by giving a chance to a thing I know I'll probably not like. There's a lot of media out there, and I have to manage what I can watch and what I can't, what I can consume and what I can't, right? And that also led me to another little bit of a crisis. I was like, okay, so am I allowed to not like SAO or not be interested in it because I saw that it was bad in a review and I understood why? I mean, on one hand, that was kind of why reviews were made in the first place back in the day. Nowadays, video essays and reviews are sort of mostly used as a tool to validate one's opinion. You watch something about a thing you already consumed so you can see if the guy making the video agrees with you or doesn't agree with you. But you know, back in magazines and, you know, TV and all that, reviews, you know, movie reviews, book reviews, they were made so you could know if something was worth getting or not, if something was worth watching or reading. But through YouTube, reviews started being more about entertainment than information. Stuff like the VGN and other skit reviewers from back in the day kind of set the standard that, okay, these are supposed to be fun. These are supposed to be informative, but they're mostly supposed to give you either a laugh or something new, and then that transitioned into the video essay landscape and all that. Now we're here. So that made me feel a little worse about it too, especially when not every single review built on the negative opinion was necessarily that annoying to me. I recently watched Skitty Bitty's review of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, where she tore the game apart talking about how bad it was and even put it in the thumbnail like, oh, it's bad, right? But I think she was fairly reasonable, and even though I still mostly kind of like Tears of the Kingdom, it's complicated. I don't like it very much either, but I don't think it's horrible. Just kind of frustrates me in a few ways, and because of that, I could agree with her points and see them very well, and that was a fun watch, one that didn't annoy me to hell and back, even though you could say she was just being actively negative, how the whole thesis of the video was proving the game wasn't that great actually. A similar case are Dear Dub's videos on the Freedom Planet series, which are great games with dope stories, but Dear Dub doesn't think that. While they do enjoy the game, they have a lot of issues with the story, issues that I personally don't agree with, or at least don't think are that big of a deal. But their videos are titled like, oh, but the story is actually mid, which is sort of frustrating to see, right? And I remember I even went to the Galaxy Trail Discord, which is the studio behind Freedom Planet, to talk with the community about the review, to see if other people agree with it or not, to see what the consensus was. And pretty much everyone just said like, oh, this video is built around negativity, I'm not even gonna give it a watch, right? It's not even worth going through, it's just gonna make me feel bad. Goes back to the whole it's about intent thing. So that made me feel even more lost. Was the video worth it? Was it not? The video itself was kind of frustrating to watch, but there were some decent points similar to the Frontiers video. Basically, at that point, I was just kind of lost. I didn't know what to think about these reviews. Should people be negative? Should people be positive? How okay is it to pick apart something to minimal detail? How okay is it to have a different opinion for someone, or even the consensus, right? At that point, I was just lost. I was trying to pick at examples and see how they differed from each other, and it was annoying because you can't just not have an opinion. At one point, I just said, okay, so I want to escape from it. I will sit down in my own corner, enjoy the games I like, and that's it. I don't want to engage with the discussion anymore. I don't want to deal with all this bullcrap anymore and participate in this stupid flame wars. Is it even okay to be bothered by different opinions? To not engage and to just ignore it? Or am I being ignorant for not wanting to see other points of view and understanding these things better? There's some media that most can agree are objectively good or bad, you know? Most everyone, you can look at something like, say, Superman 64, and I don't think that game has a single unironic fan, right? That game is just objectively bad, but at the same time, you have other stuff where, you know, some people may like it or dislike it, and there's no way to objectively say it's bad or not. It's just a matter of opinion, I suppose. I just wanted to talk about stuff I like. I just wanted to share about video games and understanding them and what makes them good or bad. But with people being so angry and so disrespectful, it was basically impossible to see that without being frustrated or annoyed at how people were acting about it. People take it too personally. People take it too impersonally. It's either so objective that personal experience and opinion isn't at play, or it's quote-unquote objective in another way where their personal opinion and experience is the objective truth and everyone else's opinion is by default wrong. And I was just so tired. I was just so done. And that's when I decided to make this video. I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm gonna talk about how this is making me feel lost. I'm confused. I don't know what to think about media anymore, how to review it, how to talk about how I feel. Was I being mean when I didn't want to? I didn't know anymore. I don't want to be known for being that guy with opinions. I just wanted to share about stuff I liked, or maybe even stuff I disliked if I have a good enough reason to dislike it and felt a reason to talk about it. It's disagreeing about stupid shit online can be such a big deal. You can't just be yourself fully without your identity being sort of marked by your opinion on a fucking Sonic game or whatever. It sucks. People watch videos and talk about this stuff online not because they genuinely want to share, but because they want to keep up with the discourse, right? They always have to have a super specific objective opinion on something, and it's exhausting to see that. And originally, the first version of this video just ended with me being, okay, I just don't know what to think anymore. I'm gonna leave this here. You can share your opinions in the comments, and that's it, right? I was open to seeing feedback and seeing what you guys thought because I didn't know. This video didn't have a thesis, it didn't have a point. It was just me being confused and complaining, and honestly, fair enough, right? But some things happened since that and made me sort of rethink things. So, a few days ago, Ian Waffles, who you might know for making a few videos on his own channel and alongside some other creators, and guess what? He helped Jab with his Sonic Frontiers video. He saw my live streams where I reacted to that, and he messaged me talking about how much he actually enjoyed seeing my thoughts and opinions and my take on things. Suddenly we just started talking about games we liked and stuff, and we had this whole conversation on Discord, and eventually our talk ended up being the subject of this video. And he shared a few thoughts that made me rethink this whole thing and how I feel about it. Essentially, I just had to cope with it. Of course, the idea that you're never gonna agree with everyone is pretty well established both online and in real life, right? It's part of growing up and maturing, understanding that your opinion is just your opinion. But understanding that is completely different from actually feeling it and coping with it and being okay with that. Especially online when you see different opinions clashing all the damn time and people getting so personal about it. It's easy to get annoyed, even if you understand conceptually that these are just other people's opinions and they don't matter to you specifically because your opinion is just your own, right? But it's just about talking about this stuff enough with people and thinking about it. Eventually, what happened to me anyway is that I just sort of starting to understand it. Ian, when we were talking about it, he said he saw this from somewhere else. I don't know where, it might have been another video. An example of a phrase someone said where if something works for you, it just works for you. And that's number one. That's what should matter the most. If something you consume gave you the good brain chemicals for whatever reason, you might not even understand why, right? If it worked for you, then that's all that matters, right? It doesn't have to be good or bad, but as long as you like it, it's good for you, and that means something. That is already worth something, and it's king, really. Again, it goes back to what I said in the beginning. Your own experience is king. But even though I understand that personally, it was so hard to rationalize it and make it make sense when everyone was talking about X thing is bad or Y thing is good. It doesn't matter what is bad or what is good at the end of the day. It's just, you know, if I sit down and enjoy something, then it already has some sort of meaning, right? Others might disagree, and of course, there are people who are really just haters. In between the jab tubes, there's always gonna be some lily orchards, people who are genuinely just here to bring negativity and just be haters and be bad at criticism, right? People who are even more overt about it, the guy on the Twitter thread, right? And sometimes people are just gonna be haters. And as the old saying goes, haters are gonna fucking hate, right? That's it. That happens. It's okay. You just can't let that get to you. And I think I sort of let it get to me. And even if it doesn't make the most sense, I think the best thing you can do about it is just take some deep breaths, realize it's not worth it, and try to move on. Understand that some things might mean something to you, whereas might not mean as much to other people. It's less voluntary than simply deciding to ignore others' opinions. It's about understanding that. It's about seeing those opinions, or not seeing if you don't feel like it, but if you want to learn more, it's always fair to sit down and see other people's opinions and stuff you like, right? You might get a new perspective on it, just like I got with Jav's video. Even though it still was kind of unbearable to watch, I think ultimately it was worth it, because I got a new point of view. I got a new understanding. I think we can all at the very least relate to that feeling. The feeling that, okay, you might really like something, but someone else doesn't. Okay, we might not all agree on what's good and what's bad and what's enjoyable and what's not, but everyone has a piece of work that means a lot to them. And chances are, if you're around here online and seeing these video essays and seeing people on Twitter talking about it, you're gonna find at least someone who doesn't agree with you. And it feels horrible, but it's a part of life. And we can all understand how that feels like and what it means to move on from that and have a more healthy mindset in the future about all of this stuff. Now I felt it with the Sonic Frontiers and with all of this going on, but now every time I go ahead and complain about something I didn't like, I'll do it with the knowledge that to someone else, this might have been a very formative or very important work that changed their lives, and that's worth something too. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you all next time.